Well, fellas, I mean, every single Wednesday, it's very realistic. We are graced by the presence of the publisher
Allegedly.
of all Lions, of course, host of the Detroit Sports Podcast, good friend of the program. Please welcome in the Doc, Mr. John Maakaron. John,
Yo,
John.
Doc.
By the way, John had a day today. John, they were whining and dining the meeting. Can you talk about today? How'd it go, man? I saw you downtown. You did a great job covering it. How was it?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, did I push all the buttons correctly? There's a lot of buttons to push to set up an interview like this, and sometimes you forget. So
You sound
did I
great.
do okay? Am I sounding
Yeah,
good?
you're good, Doc. You're good.
Oh man, it's good. So tonight's a Corona night.
There we go.
Man,
There you go, Doc.
The night before Corona. I love it.
absolutely. It was great. Got to go downtown, the site of Tiger Stadium. Yes. Old Tiger Stadium. It was great to be on those hallowed grounds, to see the 13 players that were there. Got to talk to briefly Roger Goodell. And then after we talked to some of the players, it was great. Talked to Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. Got to see some female content creators trying to trick some of these guys with some trivia. I was like, get out of the way. It's time for the Doc to get in here. But I had to fight my way through some of the content creators. It was great.
Did you see
And
Sketch?
then I thought that was going to be it for the day, just to break down this NFL draft event. And then all of a sudden, all the news broke with the contracts, the draft rumors. Oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be like this starting Thursday, but for it to start today, I'm amped up. It's going to be a great week, boys, and I'm ready for it. I'm amped up.
What's up, Boone? No, you can go. You were saying something. I'll let you finish.
No, I was just going to ask if you saw Sketch. I saw like the most famous person in the world. Sketch was at the old Tiger Stadium running routes with Caleb Williams today. And he tore, I was watching it. He tore his hamstring running routes with Caleb Williams. It was unbelievable. I don't know if you saw him as well. Like the most famous person on the world.
I didn't see Sketch. I was hanging more by the female influencers, trying to see what kind of questions they were going to try to ask. It was funny as all hell. It had a Super Bowl feel. It was a big time deal, but it was cold as hell. What the hell? It's late April and it's 40 degrees, and everybody's talking about Detroit being cold as fuck downtown. But hell, look, bottom line, the eyes of the NFL world are here. Detroit is ready. The draft is upon us. It's going to be great. The Lions are going to get better over the next 3 days, and it's going to be a fun time, man. Let's go.
John, can I ask you too? And I'll start this off because we talked about it for a pretty good amount of time today. The extensions that came out, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the fellas are all in lockstep here with their value. They deserve the money. There's really no debate there. Can you provide some context, or at least from what you know, or just your opinion on the Jared Goff side of things? I said earlier that my personal opinion, Doc, is most likely, again, this is just my opinion, it has to do with the length. I don't want your opinion on that. Guaranteed money, I don't see them being far apart on potentially. I think it's more Jared's camp wants a long-term deal because he has 1 year left, so you got to tack that on. And maybe Brad's trying to keep it more shorter. Am I off on that?
Not at all. You look at it before I came on and looking at the terms at All Lions, our writer Christian looked at the terms that Amon-Ra got, and you look at what the contract Penei got, a lot of guaranteed money. If you're Jared Goff, of course you're happy for the guys getting extension, but the optics are, wait a minute, Brad Holmes took care of the young guys first before one of the key reasons this football team took a step forward. If you're Jared Goff, you got to be like, wait a minute. Shouldn't it be kind of maybe I get taken care of first? Usually quarterbacks kind of get taken care of. Lamar got taken care of. And I know that these deals sometimes take until the summer, and that's what many people are expecting. But I would agree with your sentiment. But at the same token, what I'm hearing, whispers behind the scenes, is that Jared Goff maybe is not going to come off that $50 million asking price. And he believes he's worth it. And I believe that he knows what he means to this organization, and he doesn't want to come down. Potentially his agent for sure doesn't want to bring the price down. But as I was thinking beforehand, you know what? You know who the man is for the job? Besides Brad Holmes, it's Steve Yzerman. When he does his contracts, he has his number, and that's it. He doesn't move off of it. And I was just thinking, grabbing the Corona, cutting up the lime to put in it. You know what? If you're Brad Holmes and you want to take a hard line stance and you say, look, here's what I'm offering. It's 4 years, $160 million, all guaranteed, and that's it. And incrementally, the representatives of Jared Goff are going to want to maximize what he can get in terms of length, guaranteed money, and all that. And so I would presume at this point they're in the active negotiation phase. I'm sure it's going to be a healthy negotiation. But if you're Jared Goff's camp, why would you come down from $50 million? You brought this team 2 playoff wins. You're the face of the organization. You embody everything that you think a quarterback should be. But if you're Brad Holmes, you are somebody that also has to recognize there's some more mouths to feed. So I think that maybe we all thought it was going to land between 45 and 50. There's a good chance maybe it lands at with 45 being the high side. Maybe it lands between 40 and 45. I'm certain Brad Holmes is like, look, if you want some of these talented players around you, we can't pay everybody $30 million a year. And I just think that the negotiation is going to be a healthy one and probably go all the way up until training camp.
Hey, real quick too, before I have a draft question for you, Doc. Before that, real quick, just to follow up with that, does it feel like that is it like inevitable that the deal is going to get done this summer, or do you think there's a chance that this gets held up?
Okay, now here's the tough part is that you don't want a player to be upset. You don't want Jared Goff going into this year as a lame duck. You recognize, you say, wait a minute, he's definitely, among the top paid quarterbacks, but I think that you got to show a commitment to Jared Goff. I believe that moving forward, you see that this player probably gives you the best chance to have consistent playoff success. But at the same token, if you're Brad Holmes, you also have to look to the future and you have to say, wait a minute, a lot of teams that end up struggling pay their quarterbacks a big amount of money. The league trend has been to go younger. Would you hand the keys to Hendon Hooker after 2024? I doubt it. I think it's a big risk. It's a rough signal to send to the locker room if you don't extend Jared Goff. I believe the deal will get done. It's just hammering out the details along the way. I would be shocked if they don't do it because first and foremost, if you don't want the media relishing in negativity, if you don't pay Jared Goff in October, somebody that you're talking to might be calling for Hendon Hooker to play, and let's see what he's got. And you don't want that talk starting. You want a comfortable, relaxed Jared Goff. You don't want him going into his year where everyone's going to speculate, wait a minute, why didn't he get paid? That means the organization doesn't believe in him. And I just don't see that happening. He's going to get the deal done, but it might not be as much as people think.
Yeah. Go ahead, Klotz. I didn't. Go ahead.
What's up, Boone?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna ask, with all these reports coming out, especially the one that came out later today or earlier today, with them moving back up in the top 15, do you think there's any legitimacy to that? And if they were, we just got done. We think it's going to be a defensive player, but is there any chance of it being an offensive player?
Oh, yeah. Look, Sports Illustrated on it. Albert Breer, one of the best NFL insiders in the game. It's been great to be part of that, to be able to tap into insights from the mothership. Oh, man. Look, first and foremost, if the Lions want a player, they're going to do everything they can to get that player. You would think defensively is the area they would go, but would they want to go out there and get another explosive weapon? I don't think so. I don't think that that's really a situation in which it's the best suited, especially when you look at now what's happened. It may behoove this football team to trade down because then you don't have to invest as much. The further down you go, the potential it is you pay less and you don't have to guarantee that 5th-year option, or you don't have to, pay an exorbitant signing bonus. But look, it all is going to depend on the draft board, who the Lions find to be the most impactful, who they're convicted on. There's so many players I think that the Lions would be able to justify trading up for. But I think you guys are probably right. It would probably be, if they move up, probably be for the guy that is going to play opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, whether it be Jared Verse, whether it be, Jarius Robinson, somebody that they feel is somebody that they trust can be somebody that can have impact. And I think you get impact sooner with a defensive lineman than you do a cornerback. A guy that one of my writers is in love with, I'm kind of slowly coming around to him, is Latu. But I just think that you can get more impact with other players as well. But if you go to All Lions and you check out our Twitter page, we debated it. Christian just really loves Latu, feels like he's one of the best out there. So pay attention to that name. But with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, I think that Dan put out a smokescreen when he was like, we're going to just, if we don't find our guy, we're going to trade down. Look, I feel like if there's a guy that they really covet and they believe he's going to have an impact and is a Detroit Lion and they believe it and they're convicted, they're going up. They're going to make the move. Brad Holmes is not somebody that just is going to settle. They'll take their chance. And if they don't, then I think that there's an opportunity as well to trade down. So it's going to be a very fun night. It's all going to depend on how that draft board shakes out. But look, it's great. I think that it would be awesome. It would be spectacular if, and I think what's going to pop the crowd the most, 13, 14, 15 comes around and you hear the Detroit Lions trade up and you got the guy there. If they trade up for Terrion Arnold and he's there, boom, you have the instant celebration. You have the guy being happy. He's donning the jersey in front of the passionate audience. It's a win-win, and you get a player that Nick Saban loves. So I wouldn't be devastated if it was Terrion Arnold. But to me, I'm definitely of the opinion you potentially should get somebody to play across from Aiden Hutchinson. The guy for me that would excite me if they go up and get a wide receiver, go out there and get a guy. Go out and potentially get a Thomas or go out there and get a Leggett if you feel like he's going to fall. But at the same time, you know, I just think that it's hard when you see that defense. There's a lot of offensive weapons they got, and you can get wide receivers later on. It's hard to get some of those impactful defenders.
Yeah, and he's preaching. And Doc, kind of to that point you brought up there that today Dan actually said and mentioned, hey, Detroit fans, would you rather have one night sleep and get 2 more picks tomorrow or just take a pick now? What are your thoughts then if they do stay at 29 and you threw out a lot of names there like the Lot 2s and Terrion Arnolds, if they stay at 29 or go back into that second round, what are some like what is your kind of favorite names of going about that? Like, is it like a Darius Robinson? I heard you mention him, or Kool-Aid McKinstry seems to be a hot name, or even if you trade back and a Mikey Sanders still, what are some names for you that you're kind of have an eye on that you want them to take if they end up trading back or staying at 29?
Yeah, Booner's Bulge. You got a fan, huh? Let's cool.
Go, man. Shout out Booner's Bulge.
How am I gonna take this seriously? This is good. Look, staying at 29 is also ideal. I think that there's a lot of options. That's what this draft is great, is that universally most people are going to believe that whatever the Lions do, it's going to be good. We'll toast it. And if they listen, for me, having a grind of a Wednesday, and the beginning of my Thursday is going to be busy. If they go out and they trade down and it's announced early and we can just relax on Thursday, enjoy the draft like everybody else, that would be great. But if they stay at 29, look, the name that's just kind of popping up, you said Kool-Aid McKinstry. Look, he's coming off the injury, so that puts everybody's radar on Brad Holmes. He likes those guys that potentially are coming off of injury and have potential. But the name that just keeps popping up all over the internet, had a chance at the event I went to talk to Daniel Jeremiah. He definitely raved about Kool-Aid McKinstry, but he said, when I asked him directly, I said, what do you think of the offensive line class? Who impresses you? Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson, Frazier? And he said, look, all of them. If you land an offensive lineman at 29, Detroit, be happy, toast it. These guys are great. But he said, look, if there's a guy that just screams to Daniel Jeremiah, and it seems like now it's screaming to everybody else, it's Frazier from West Virginia. If the Lions land Frazier, it feels like he's the Dan Campbell guy in this draft. It feels like he's the guy that Dan Campbell would like, a road grader, a guy that's really tough, versatile, just has the ability, I think, to step in, even compete for a starting job right away. So you look at Frazier, that's a name that's kind of the hot name that's rising up the board. I don't know if he'll be there. In our latest All Lions mock draft, our writer put him down there in the second round with the trade down. But I don't know if he'll be there down in the 40s. So if there's an offensive lineman that you believe can come in and compete sooner rather than later, I would have no problem with that. Cornerback is just the toughest spot because it takes a little bit of time. And Kool-Aid McKinstry, I also asked Daniel Jeremiah about, and it'll be featured in tomorrow's early morning story. But I just think that that's a player that, you know, has some things that he's going to have to work out before he becomes a stout NFL player. And so for me, you go offensive line, you make everybody happy, you build in the trenches, and you continue, because you got 3 guys in their 30s, and you now have Penei Sewell under contract. You want to give him, you know, the starting to start the rebuild of having the next generation of the offensive line come in and do some things.
Yeah, John, I tried to, over the last, the more we talk about the draft, the more comfortable I am with drafting an offensive lineman, given it's this team's identity in the trenches, which offensive line certainly is. And part of it too, and I want to ask you about this because I saw this floating around and I want your insight on it to kind of give a different perspective. If there is a Zach Frazier or a JPJ, which I would be comfortable with those selections, you have to also think of Frank Ragnow and how much longer he has in the NFL. I saw somewhere that he expects, and I don't think this was true to be fair, but your opinion on it, maybe a year or so. He's not even 30 yet. What do you think the future of Frank Ragnow holds in the NFL? And maybe how does that affect maybe taking a Zach Frazier or a JPJ? You think he's got a year left, or could you see him playing a little longer?
Man, you know what's interesting is that now with the contracts that were given out, what does that mean for Taylor Decker? Does that mean he plays his last year? Does he want to go out with the guy? It's all going to be predicated too on the success. If the Lions get like to the Super Bowl and lose, would you see Frank Ragnow getting a taste and then walking away? The guy's an ultimate competitor. It's going to really be predicated on how this season goes. Look, he's already been with the, he really wants to honor the extension. And I just would have a hard time seeing him just walk away. I know that the reports, people are saying, hey, that they wouldn't be surprised if he walked away, but I would be. I think that he's the ultimate gamer. You guys, he played with literally a throat situation and still came out there and played, had his throat impacted and didn't leave the game. So he wants to be out there. I think he's, these offensive linemen are warriors. And so if you ask him during the season, he's going to say, man, I'm probably thinking about it. But when you get a couple months off and you get a chance to rehab it and you get a chance to go back, when they get that taste and it's going to be, look, if the Lions do win the Super Bowl in 24, that also maybe make it easier for him to walk away. But I don't think that that's going to play a big part in the Lions draft decision, because I think that Frank Ragnow is going to keep a young center at bay for a couple years. He's a gamer, and I think that he wants to be somebody that leads this football team. So like I said, the grind of an NFL season does get to people, and the injuries, you've seen that he's got to manage it. But the Lions have found a perfect plan where he gets a day off of practice every week. After a day off, they're maintaining it, and he's able to produce at a very high level. So why would you walk away? I think that it's all going to be really predicated on how he does perform this year and the success of the team. There's no way if the Lions get an inch closer and lose and you are a competitor like Frank Ragnow is, I would be shocked if he walked away.
Yeah, especially if he stays upright. Like if he suffers an injury, a pretty again, the toe is messed up again, or another significant injury, maybe that does change. But I'm with you. I don't see it. They're the best they've been in his career. It's tough to walk away from that.
Yeah, no, that would be very difficult. Very difficult. But Doc, tomorrow, the first round's tomorrow. Everybody's excited for that. But then Friday, the second and third rounds start to click on. And after the dust settles in the first round, who are maybe a player or two that you would just love for the Lions to pick up in those second and third rounds?
Yeah, looking at the film, my guy Christian kind of put me onto a lot of players. And you look at it, Luke McCaffrey is a wide receiver that can do some things. I think if you look for a wide receiver, you look for a player that comes from great lineage. Christian McCaffrey's brother, you look at it, and he's a player that I think could definitely come in and do some things. You look at a lot of what the Lions can do. I'm wondering which safety they're going to look at, because I do believe that they're going to probably upgrade the safety position as well. You look at it, and I think you got to have competition at the same time. I wonder if they kind of want to have competition with Kirby Joseph to see if he can raise his game. There's a lot of players in those rounds that you want to look at. McCaffrey's one of them. I'm wondering, when you look at some of the other edge rushers, you look at it and you kind of are always looking at who are Dan Campbell guys. And I think the son of Luther Ellis, I think would come in and be a player that, I think would love being part of the Detroit Lions. I'm wondering too, like they don't have a pick, I believe, in the fourth round. Do they try to maneuver and get that eighth pick? So look, for Brad Holmes, the more picks, the merrier. But I am wondering kind of their strategy. Would they go offense first and then tackle the defenders later? I think there's just more impact on defense and earlier, and you can go more on the offense in terms of linemen as well later in the draft. But pay attention to Luke McCaffrey, maybe Brendan Rice that you're looking for. But at the same token, pay attention to, I think, the position that many people believe they're going to target as safety in later rounds.
You just spoke to Lucas's soul there with those
Luke
players.
McCaffrey and safety, because Lucas has brought up safety to us a couple times.
And Joe Ellis. Jesus.
Yeah, I want to bring up this position as well. And kind of to your point there, Doc, if they stay at 29, you mentioned them kind of just, hey, let's just go offensive line and keep that offensive line built up, kind of the heart of the team there. With that, then shows they're not, if they stay away from a Kool-Aid or don't trade up for a Quinion or Terrion. I think on the defensive side, I think outside of edge, we can all agree that this corner situation with Cam Sutton, that whole thing that went down is a little up in the air still a little bit. Brad did seem like in some press conferences he's comfortable with Amik Robertson and as well as Carlton Davis. Do you have any worries about that? Has that kind of crossed your mind, or even in like the press conferences in those rooms? Has that been a conversation of talk at all? What's going on in this corner room? Because they do say they feel comfortable with it, but just if we're being honest, it's obvious that they felt like Cam Sutton was going to be a part of that, and he's just gone now, and that seems like it has to be addressed. Has there been any conversation with that?
Yeah, that's a big concern. I think they're going to address it. I think that you look at the cornerback spot, from all the buzz that you've heard, all the reports that you've seen, they've done heavy amount of work on two positions, wide receiver and cornerback. So you recognize too that you've lost Josh Reynolds. You want to keep that room stout. So you recognize too that there's some players that later on in the draft that you could target. But look, they upgraded the room, but there's a lot of worry and concern too, because look, in every situation, Amik Robertson probably going to play in the slot. You give Brian Branch a spell if he plays a little bit of safety and does a little bit of dual roles. But Amik Robertson a little bit undersized, and so he's going to have some competition that he's got to perform as well. You look at it and you say Carlton Davis. I think he's a strong upgrade from what you had, but I think that at the same token, he'll be tested early, and we'll see, is he ready to step up and be that individual? The big question mark is Emmanuel Mosley. I think in our talks before, we wondered, okay, is this a player that you think could potentially you could move on from and upgrade the spot because of his injury history? But the Lions still want to see what he was about. And I saw his dedication. And even when he was rehabbing from injury, he was there at the practice facility. He's a guy that was constantly in the ear of Aaron Glenn. If he can stay healthy, you still don't know what you've got in that player. The guy that you saw on film a couple of years ago was a physical corner that could do some things. But man, it's easier said than done to find cornerbacks that can play press man corner. And man, I think you guys that asked me last week who was the guy that would make me flip out, and I said it was Cooper DeJean. Well, guess whose name popped up today and who said it? Joel Klatt. And I'll give the details tomorrow in my article, but he sat up there and he was, of course, talking about Michigan, which made me groan and be like, oh my God, why is Michigan great? But he sat up there and he was like, a player that I love, that I just can't think, that I just believe strongly should be a Lion is Cooper DeJean. And he was talking about, I don't know, but many people are not talking about it, but that guy could be a safety. He fits everything that the Lions would love in regards to his athleticism, his gamer, the Lions that love Iowa. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, it's Cooper DeJean. And I'm like, Jesus, that's not the guy. That's kind of the guy I would have the most question marks about. But Joel Klatt loves him. And a lot of people do as well. I'm wondering if he's there at 29, would the Lions invest in a guy that projects more to be more of a safety than, because he doesn't play man. There aren't that many great press man corners. And it forced last year with what the Lions had, it forced them to play more zone, and it forced Aaron Glenn to blitz a lot more. Kool-Aid McKinstry, a lot better, a lot more proficient at press man. So it'll be interesting to see. The cornerback spot should give everybody a worry, because it's tough all the way around, but a lot of teams are looking for upgrades at that spot. They gave up far too many yards. I think it'll be better, but sitting here today, I don't want to relish in negativity, but that is the unit that we all should be worried about the most, is the defensive backs room.
And real quick, I just want to follow up with that, Doc, for tomorrow. It's really a question for Thursday, Friday, not even Saturday as much. Brad's an active guy. Outside of just trading up in the first, like last year in the second round, he was making trades. Is he gonna be a quick is he gonna be super active here? Is it gonna be like trade? Because I remember we talked about it yesterday on our show. Lucas and I were covering it at Woodward, and when we were covering it, we were both on socials and I was on the desk, and it was the most overwhelming thing. Brad Holmes had Lukas literally in a blender, and Lukas went, I don't know what I could do anymore. I need help over here, because there was just so many trades. So is that we're going to see that again this year? He does have capital for the next 2 years.
Yeah. Well, look, you look at it, and for a guy like me, it would be a complete nightmare because we have the cycle of information that we got to give out for every pick. So if he does be active, I'm hoping that one trade down tomorrow, and then we can rest up a little bit, get our bearings from a rough Wednesday, and then go after it on Friday and Saturday. But look, I think that, right now they got 7 picks. I think that at most this year they'll have 8. And I do think that they could position themselves where they could add additional capital next year. Look, Brad Holmes is a guy that likes to make trades, and there could be a package of trades on day 2 where you get additional capital, get that additional 4th round pick that you don't have, and maybe even get another pick next year. But I think that in the end, if there are a lot of deals, it'll be a lot of moving and shaking, like taking a couple picks from this year, moving up a spot, then taking a couple picks from next year and moving in back into this spot and kind of shuffling the deck. As long as they're spread apart, it gives reporters enough time to gather their bearings, get the information that's out there. But look, Brad Holmes, he's got himself a nice reputation, but why wouldn't you want him to get as many picks as possible? The man cooks. So why not give him the most ingredients? And the more picks that he gets, the better it is for the Detroit Lions, because his hit rate is unbelievable. So, while look, it would be a small irritant if he got, the 9th and 10th pick, and if especially does it on day 3, I don't mind it at all, because the more options this team has for depth and competition, we all know that the end result is going to be a football team that wins a lot of games in November and December.
And Doc, too, last question I got for you, and it's something we've put on the show. I guess we broke it in a way, not the initial report, but we caught it on Tracy Walker's story. He was at Detroit. He was at the Metro. He's flying in. He was in the D. What's going on with Tracy Walker? Have you heard anything about them potentially bringing him back, unless he's just back for another reason? But what's going on with the Tracy Walker stuff? Because I caught it, and then it kind of died in the media realm. I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, real fast. Let me address Tyler. Yeah, I'm still on. I got inside knowledge. I got the information. I'm there. And I can go for 2, 3, 4 hours, man. I got so much information. I'm in the building. I have the information.
This is the information we need. We need the information.
I don't want to talk about myself too much, but I'll say this. Like I said, I'm affiliated with Sports Illustrated that has a deep inside connection to Dan Campbell and Rod Wood, and they text back and forth. So where do you think I get some of the information that comes out in regards to some of the scouting reports we did? So pay attention. But I want to say this in regards to Tracy Walker. I think that one of the things that irritates me the most is that this fan base attaches to everybody that's on the roster and then wants them back when Brad Holmes recognizes they're not good anymore. Listen, boys, common sense. It was a layover. The man was vacationing and probably was hitting up Detroit as a layover on his way from his hometown to the Bahamas. There ain't no way the Lions want to go back to Tracy Walker. He lost a step, and unfortunately, he got beat out. And think about it. When you just saw the trajectory of what happened, he was a guy that was a starter and then, no disrespect, eventually did not see the field anymore. Had a special teams role and then did not see the field. So I know that the Lions fans have an opportunity to, be real supportive of these guys. But bottom line, there's a lot better safeties out there. And look, I know that there is an opportunity for him to come back on a cheaper deal. The reason why it died in the media is because I think that there's better options in the draft. I think that you got Brian Branch that can do a lot of things and is versatile. You have some guys that you brought in for top 30 visits that are safeties. You could get and draft Cooper DeJean, and he's a guy as well. And so I look at it and I say, look, I wouldn't be shocked if he comes back, but I just think that, in regards to what's going on, I just think that the depth chart would indicate that he would come back as the 5th safety. So I don't think that that's a situation in which you don't need to revisit that situation. It's done, and he had his run. Unfortunately, it ends because of injury. It wasn't because he wasn't talented. If he stayed healthy, then you have an opportunity. He would have been a guy that you want on this roster. Very physical, stand-up guy. But coming back from that injury at his spot, man, that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, real quick before we get you out of here, the Cooper DeJean, and I love Joe Klatt. All right, people know how much I love Joe Klatt. I've never also heard Joe Klatt talk bad about anybody, so he just kind of loves it. He just loves everybody. It's just how it's his job. But
That's why I love Dan Orlovsky.
Hey, well, Joel, not slandering him. All right, we'll get you out of here, Doc. We appreciate you. Good luck this weekend and then some. Doc, going to be busy. Next Wednesday, it'll be a lot of fun. We'll be downtown, so I know you'll be in the lab. So good luck to you, my good friend, and we'll catch you next week.
Yeah, I can't wait to recap it all with you boys. It's going to be great. Look, Brad Holmes is going to cook. He's going to make everything really, I think the fan base is going to enjoy it. And please, look, don't want to give too many PSAs and tell people what to do, but just a quick preview of my podcast tomorrow. Please, if I'm walking around tomorrow and it's 5 o'clock, I don't want a contact high, people. Please go there, put on your Sunday best, act appropriately, only have one Corona. I cannot walk the streets of Detroit and then show up to Allen Park smelling like the sticky icky, okay? Let's keep it professional. I don't want the green haze all over Detroit because it's going to be reflected upon the entire city, okay? We all do that other times. This weekend, put the sticky icky away and put on your best and entertain these people from out of town, because if I see reports that Detroit stunk it up and made it an embarrassment, it's not going to be good. Cheers, boys. Let's go, Lions.
Let's go, John. There you go. Mr. John Maakaron, publisher of All Lions, host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. Link will be in the description.
Klotzy with the 2007 duck lips, though.